The smell of engine oil always reminded me of childhood. While most kids played with toys, I played with tools: wrenches, spark plugs, screwdrivers. My father, Gregory Delano, owned one of the most reputable auto repair chains in our city, Delano and Sons. I used to dream about the day I'd officially be added to the logo. My name, right there on the building next to his. From the age of 13, I spent my summers in the garage. While my friends were off at the beach or skateboarding, I was under a hood, learning to diagnose engine problems. I didn't mind. In fact, I loved it. Dad would smile when I got something right, clap me on the back and say, "You've got the touch, Ryan." My younger brother, Carson, was the opposite. He was the charming, golden-haired kid who got away with everything. He barely knew a brake pad from a dinner plate. He was always off at tennis camps, golf clinics, or hanging out with girls. Whenever he did come by the shop, it was a 5-minute photo op. He'd smile for Dad, shake a few hands, and leave like he'd done a full shift. But I didn't resent him. Not really. I figured he wasn't built for the business, and honestly, I didn't mind doing the work. I thought that my devotion, my sweat, my years of service would eventually speak louder than anything else. That belief came crashing down one Sunday afternoon. The family meeting had an air of finality to it. Mom had made roast beef, Dad's favorite, and even Carson was home from his business development trip in San Diego. "I've got an announcement," Dad began as we finished dessert. "It's about the business." My heart leapt. I had been running 3 out of 5 branches already. I knew our books better than our accountant. This was it. The torch was about to be passed. Dad cleared his throat. "Your mother and I have decided to officially transfer ownership of Delano and Sons to Carson." Time stopped. I blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" Carson beamed like a man who'd just won the lottery. "Yeah, Dad and I have been talking for a while. It's a big responsibility, but I'm ready." "Ready?" I laughed, but it wasn't humorous. "You don't even know how to read a service ticket." Dad's tone turned stern. "That's enough, Ryan." "No, it's not enough," I shot back. "I've bled for this business. I know it inside and out, and you hand it off to someone who's barely been in the garage?" Mom reached out. "Honey, this was a hard decision." "No, it was an easy one," I said bitterly. "You just chose the prettier son." Carson shrugged. "Come on, man, it's not personal. I'll need your help getting things sorted, maybe as a general manager." I stood up. The betrayal stung more than I'd imagined it could. "I quit." "Ryan, don't be dramatic," Dad said, his voice rising. "I gave everything to this family," I said, grabbing my jacket, "and all you saw was a placeholder." Then I walked out. I didn't yell, I didn't cry, I just left. That night, I drove aimlessly around the city until my gaslight came on. I ended up at a 24-hour diner, staring into a cup of burnt coffee, wondering how everything I'd believed in could vanish in a single conversation. But as dawn broke and the city started waking up, something shifted inside me. For the first time in my life, I had nothing tying me down. No expectations. No legacy to maintain. Maybe, just maybe, that meant I could finally build something of my own. 2 days had passed since the family meeting. 2 days since I walked out of my parents' house, feeling like I'd been gutted. I hadn't spoken to anyone since. No calls from Mom. A single text from Carson that read, "Hope you cool down soon. Let's talk." I didn't answer. I spent those 2 days inside my cramped apartment, surrounded by auto manuals, old service reports, and a bottle of whiskey that I hadn't quite decided if I was drinking out of sadness or defiance. But on the morning of day 3, something snapped. Not anger, not even bitterness. Clarity. For 20 years, I'd helped build my father's empire, brick by greasy brick. But I didn't own any of it. I didn't even have my name on a single lease or title. I'd helped grow a garden I was never allowed to harvest from. So I opened my laptop, pulled up a fresh document, and typed a single sentence. Build something better than Delano and Sons. The idea started as a joke, really. Just a rebellious spark. But then I thought about all the clients who had followed me to the different branches, the ones who'd ask for me by name. I thought about the mechanics I trained, the loyalty I'd built through honesty and long hours. What if I reached out to them? What if I took everything I knew and used it? Not for revenge, but for reinvention. I didn't have much money. My savings account barely scratched $10,000. But I had connections. I had goodwill. And I had a dream that was no longer dependent on someone else's approval. The first call I made was to Malcolm, an old friend and mechanic who'd been running diagnostics before I could drive. "Malk, it's Ryan." He laughed. "Heard the news. Your brother's already redecorating the shop like a Pinterest board. You okay?" I paused. "Actually, I'm starting something new, my own garage. I want you on board." He went quiet. Then, "Where and when?" That was the push I needed. I spent the next week driving all over the city, looking for a location I could afford. Every abandoned lot or dusty warehouse felt like a pipe dream, until I found an old tire shop on the edge of a struggling neighborhood. The place was a dump: peeling paint, rusted signage, broken windows. But underneath the grime, I saw potential. It had 2 lifts, a solid steel frame, and room to expand. Best of all, the owner was retiring and desperate to sell. I negotiated like my life depended on it, because it did. The final price, $42,000, way out of my range. So I called in every favor I could. An old customer of mine, Angela Cortez, ran a credit union. I helped her son rebuild his first car from scratch. "Ryan Delano?" she said when I called. "What can I do for my favorite mechanic?" I swallowed my pride. "I need a loan. It's not just for me. It's for something bigger, a new start." She listened. She didn't promise anything. But 3 days later, I had partial financing and a handshake deal on the property. I signed the lease on a rainy Thursday afternoon. The same day, I got a letter from Delano and Sons, an invitation to Carson's ownership gala. I threw it in the trash without opening it. The next few weeks were brutal. Malcolm and I scraped grime, painted walls, replaced the lighting, and fixed the lifts ourselves. We worked 16-hour days. We slept in our clothes. Sometimes we had to run an extension cord from the neighbor's bakery just to power our tools. But slowly, inch by inch, the shop transformed. We named it Forge Auto. It wasn't just about fixing cars. It was about forging something new for our customers, for ourselves. Word got out. First, it was old regulars who found us through Facebook posts. Then came strangers, people who'd heard we didn't charge bogus fees or push services nobody needed. Our opening day brought in 9 cars. The second week, 17. Within a month, we had to hire 2 more mechanics. One evening, as I locked up the shop, grease under my nails and sweat staining my collar, I caught my reflection in the glass door. I looked exhausted, but I also looked free. I hadn't spoken to my father since the day I left. He hadn't tried to reach me either. Maybe he thought I'd come crawling back. Maybe he was too proud to admit what he'd done. Either way, I didn't care anymore. Because I was building something that wasn't handed down, it was earned. 3 months after opening Forge Auto, I was back in a groove I hadn't felt since my early days in the family shop. Grease on my hands, honest work, and the satisfaction of building something that mattered. Our customer base had tripled. Online reviews poured in. 5 stars, praise for transparency, and real mechanical skill. But success never stays quiet for long. One Monday morning, Malcolm came in, lips pursed. He tossed a folded flyer on my desk. It was from Delano and Sons. A shiny promotional ad. "Now, under fresh leadership, come experience the modern difference. 15% off all oil changes, free tire rotation, courtesy shuttle." Underneath the bold print was a photo of Carson in a navy blue blazer, arms crossed like a real CEO. "They're feeling the heat," Malcolm muttered. I stared at the flyer. I should have felt triumphant, but instead, I felt wary. The next few days brought more signs of war. Several customers told us they'd been offered exclusive deals, to come back to Delano and Sons. Some even claimed Carson had personally called them. One woman, Maria, confided that when she told him she preferred Forge Auto, he'd scoffed and said, "That place won't last 6 months. Ryan's just playing boss until he burns out." I wish I could say I laughed it off, but it hit a nerve. The truth was, I was exhausted. The early mornings, the payroll stress, the constant repairs to our beat-up equipment, it all added up. I hadn't taken a single day off since we opened. Still, I refused to let Carson win, not by default, not again, so I doubled down. That week, I reached out to an old high school friend, Kim, who now ran a marketing agency. She helped us shoot a series of videos for social media, behind-the-scenes clips, customer testimonials, even a few funny mechanics Varys reality reels that went semi-viral. Our Instagram blew up, appointments surged. People started tagging us with #sign Team Forge. But the bigger we grew, the more aggressive Carson became. He opened a new Delano Express branch, less than 4 blocks from our shop. Flashy, glass-walled, and equipped with state-of-the-art tools that I once begged my father to invest in. I'd be lying if I said it didn't rattle me. But then something happened that changed everything. Late one Thursday, just as we were locking up, an older man hobbled into the garage, cane in hand, eyes darting nervously. "Are you Ryan Delano?" he asked. I wiped my hands on a rag. "Yes, sir. How can I help you?" "My name's Ray Grisham. I was one of your dad's suppliers. You probably don't remember me. I delivered lubricants and parts for years." I did remember him, vaguely. A quiet man with a thick mustache and a battered Ford van. "I'm here because I heard you treat your people right," he said. "And I want to work with someone who doesn't forget who helped build the foundation." He slid a folded invoice toward me. It was half the cost of what we currently paid for supplies. "I've got 3 trucks, 2 drivers, and more loyalty than your brother will ever earn," Ray added. I shook his hand on the spot. It wasn't just a new vendor. It was a reminder that my efforts, my integrity, were being noticed. That Carson could throw all the money he wanted into his branches, but he couldn't buy trust. But just as things looked up, I got a call that brought it all crashing back. It was my mother. "Ryan," she said softly, "your father had a heart attack." He was in the hospital, stable but weak. Seeing him in that hospital bed, tubes and wires running across his chest, stirred something I wasn't prepared for. "Carson's on his way," Mom said, eyes red. "He's trying. He's not you, Ryan, but he's trying." I nodded but said nothing. A few minutes later, Carson walked in, still in his suit, phone glued to his ear. When he saw me, he froze. Then, in a rare moment of honesty, he said, "I didn't think you'd come." "He's still our dad," I replied, "even if he never saw me the way I saw him." Carson put away his phone and sat down. "I didn't mean for things to go this way, you know." "Didn't you?" I asked. He rubbed his jaw. "Okay, maybe I did. But when Dad said he was giving me the business, I thought, I don't know, maybe it was my turn to prove something." We sat in silence. Then he added, "Forge Auto's killing it. The guys at corporate are nervous." I smiled faintly. "Good. You ever think about coming back, running a branch? We could team up." I shook my head. "I'm not playing backup anymore." That night, as I left the hospital, I looked up at the city skyline. Carson and I would probably never be friends. We might never truly be brothers again. But that was okay. I had something now that no one could take away. Forge Auto wasn't just a business. It was mine. 2 weeks after my father's heart attack, I stood at the edge of my childhood driveway, staring at the house I once ran through barefoot as a boy. The porch light flickered slightly, the way it always had, and a familiar chime sounded as the door opened. "Ryan," my mother said, pulling me into a firm hug. "He's out of the hospital. Still weak, but stubborn." "I wonder where he gets that from," I muttered with a half smile. She chuckled and waved me inside. The air smelled like ginger tea and old wood polish. Everything frozen in time. My father was sitting in his recliner, thinner than I remembered, his face paler, but still that stern expression carved into his features, as if he was annoyed that his heart had betrayed him. "I heard you've been busy," he said without preamble. "I have. The shop's doing well. Forge Auto is more than I expected." He nodded. "I never congratulated you." I waited. "I should have. When you first came to me about starting your own branch, I saw the hunger, the vision, but I also saw the risk, and I'd already poured every spare cent into keeping Delano and Sons afloat." "You didn't trust me," I said. Not bitterly. Just the truth. "I didn't trust anyone," he replied. "Not after the recession, the layoffs, the bills. Carson, he's good with numbers. But heart? That's something I forgot mattered." I shifted, unsure what to say. Then he surprised me. I was wrong. The silence that followed weighed more than the words themselves. I let the business turn into something cold. I gave it to Carson thinking structure would save it. But now I see, it needed soul, and you had that. I swallowed hard. He coughed lightly. "When I named it Delano and Sons, I wanted legacy. But I didn't realize legacy isn't about a name. It's about who you build it with, who keeps it alive when you're gone." He reached into the side drawer and pulled out a manila envelope. "I had my lawyer draw up something," he said, handing it to me. "You'll still run Forge, but I want you to take over the Delano Foundation." I blinked. "What foundation?" "It's a nonprofit I set up in your mother's name years ago. It never got far. Money was tight, and I didn't have the time. But it was meant to fund trade school scholarships, help kids who didn't want college but still wanted to make something." I flipped through the documents inside. His name, my mother's. A space for mine. "You want me to revive it?" "I want you to lead it. You've always believed in people, Ryan. I was too busy protecting my ego to realize that's what made you better than me." I took a breath and nodded slowly. "I'll do it, but not alone. I want Malcolm involved. And Kim, she's got the branding skills, and maybe some of our top apprentices too. Build something real, ground up." "Just like Forge Auto," he murmured. In the months that followed, I juggled more than I thought possible. By day, I worked with my team at the garage, now upgraded with raised suppliers and some community investment. By night, I poured myself into the Delano Foundation, partnering with high schools, connecting with vocational programs, even recruiting small businesses to take on interns. One morning, a 17-year-old named Jaden came into the shop, resume printed on loose leaf, hands shaking. "I'm good with engines," he said. "Learned from YouTube and my uncle. No one else will give me a shot." We gave him one. 3 weeks later, he fixed a tricky transmission issue that had stumped our lead mechanic. I walked into the office, looked at Malcolm, and said, "We need more Jadens." Forge Auto eventually outgrew the original space. We moved to a larger facility with more bays, better lifts, and a small classroom for apprentice workshops. But the moment that stuck with me most happened on a Saturday afternoon. Carson showed up, not in a suit, just jeans, sneakers, and a plain t-shirt. No cameras, no dramatic entrance. "Can we talk?" he asked, glancing at the parking lot. I nodded, leading him to the break room. "I wanted to say, congratulations," he said, folding his arms. "You built something bigger than a shop. People trust you. That's rare." I said nothing. He continued, "Dad told me about the foundation. I think he finally sees you." "Do you?" Carson paused. "Maybe I do now? You were never after the title or the inheritance. You just wanted respect." "Everyone does," I replied. "I'm still going to compete," he said, flashing a small grin. "But fair this time." I held out my hand. "Deal." At the end of the year, we held our first scholarship dinner under the Delano Foundation. 12 apprentices, 12 success stories, and nearly 100 community members gathered to celebrate. My mother stood by the buffet, beaming. My father even got up to give a speech, short, gruff, but heartfelt. And I I stood in the back for a moment, soaking it all in. The laughter, the gratitude, the growth. It wasn't the business I inherited. It was the one I built, and that made all the difference. There's a strange moment in life when the past stops chasing you, and instead, walks beside you. That moment came to me one quiet Sunday morning, seated on the back porch of my parents' home. The same porch where I once scraped my knee, where Dad used to yell at Carson and me for tracking oil stains in from the garage. Now it was just me, a warm coffee in hand, and my father beside me, blanket draped over his legs, frailer than I'd ever seen him. "You're building something real, Ryan," he said, gazing out at the yard. "Something I never could." "You built something too," I said. "It just took me a while to understand it." He looked at me. "No, I built a fortress. You built a bridge." I didn't respond right away. Not because I disagreed, but because I finally saw what he meant. My journey had started with pain. Rejection. That bitter moment I found out my parents had transferred the family business to my brother, without so much as a conversation. But what I didn't understand then was that being left behind can sometimes be the greatest gift. It forces you to walk a different path, one you might never have chosen, yet one that was waiting for you all along. Forge Auto had started as a rebellion, a way to prove I could do it on my own. But it became something more, a place where broken things found second chances. Cars, kids, dreams. And I was one of those things. Later that day, I visited the Foundation's new learning center, still under renovation, but already buzzing with energy. Jaden was there, showing a group of freshmen how to install a starter motor. He waved when he saw me. "Mr. Delano, we're getting the hang of it." "You're the teacher now," I said, clapping him on the back. "I'm just the guy who signs the checks." In the office, Malcolm was reviewing partnership proposals with Kim. We were expanding, 2 more schools on board, a new mechanic mentorship program, and even a summer boot camp for at-risk youth. "You know," Kim said as we sat down, "when we started this, I thought you were nuts. Fixing engines and funding futures felt like 2 completely different worlds." "Not really," I said. "Both need time, patience, and the belief that what's broken can still run." She smiled. "You should write that down." I did. On a whiteboard near the entrance to the foundation, I scribbled, "It's not about what you inherit. It's about what you build with your own hands and who you help along the way." Ryan Delano. Months later, we held the foundation's official grand opening. The mayor showed up. Local news stations came to cover the event. Even Carson arrived, this time with a generous donation check and a surprisingly humble speech. "We all come from the same home," he said to the crowd, "but some of us have to lose the map to find a better road." When I stepped up to speak, I saw my mother wiping tears from her eyes in the front row. My father nodded quietly behind her. "I started Forge Auto after learning I wasn't going to inherit the family business," I said. At the time, it felt like betrayal. But now I realize it was permission. Permission to create something new, something better. Not just for me, but for anyone who's ever been told you're not the one. I paused and looked around the room, at students, volunteers, mentors, donors. "This isn't just my story," I continued. "It's all of ours. When people count you out, don't count yourself out. When you're left behind, don't look back in anger. Look forward with fire." The room erupted in applause, and somewhere in the back, I saw a young girl, maybe 15, taking notes in a small spiral-bound journal. Her eyes were wide, her focus sharp. I had a feeling I'd see her again. That night, after everything wound down, I returned home. The garage was empty. The air smelled faintly of rubber and grease. I wandered through the bays, hand trailing over the polished hood of a freshly repaired car. I'd done it, not because of spite, but because I chose growth over grudge, forgiveness over fury, legacy over pride. Lesson learned. When I found out my parents transferred the business to my brother, I thought I had lost everything, but I hadn't. I'd lost a shortcut, that's all. And in its place, I discovered something more powerful, my own road, forged in grit, grace, and purpose. I built Forge Auto. I rebuilt my relationship with my family. I created a foundation that outlives engines, profits, or titles. And most importantly, I rebuilt myself. So if you ever find yourself left out, overlooked, or underestimated, remember this. Sometimes the inheritance you don't get is the one that sets you free. Have you ever encountered similar incident before? If this story resonates with you, hit the like button and leave your story in the comment section. And of course, subscribe to my channel for more real, raw, and ridiculous stories. Your support means everything to this channel, and don't forget to share with anyone who might be struggling with family or recognize their own value. Sometimes the hardest person to stand up to is the one who raised you, but as I learned, it can lead to the most rewarding outcomes. Thank you for watching, and remember, knowing your worth isn't selfish, it's essential.